Hi, my name is Lori Lee, and today I will be presenting on ELL Latinx students and ethnic congruent teachers' influence on academic success. The aim of this study was to examine if having an ethnic congruent teacher would significantly affect Latinx ELL students' academic success as measured by standardized reading tests, which is what our research question here reflects. The information analyzed contained multiple administrative data files from Lubbock ISD, a large city district in West Texas, and it spanned academic school years 2012 through 2019. The administrative data contained employee data, student registration data, transcript and assessment data. Parents provided student demographic data, including race and ethnicity, gender, and home language. Transcript data included course information, test scores, attendance data, and also discipline data. And information on staff, which was self-disclosed by staff, included race and ethnicity, the courses that were instructed, certifications and endorsements, highest level of education, and years of experience. The dependent variable was ELL Latinx students' state standardized reading test scores, and the independent variable was whether or not a Latinx ELL student was assigned an ethnic congruent teacher. The original sample contained 121,275 observations, which was 30,580 students and 2,953 teachers over the 7 academic years. Of the 30,000 students, those who were ELL identified as Latinx and contained all necessary demographic data and all necessary academic and transcript data, which was matched to teachers, was 1,568. Of the 2,953 teachers, those that contained all necessary demographic, education, and experience data numbered 2,571. I first created the sample with students who had multiple years transcript data available, which was 65,177 students. I used all transcript data for students that were enrolled in a class for less than 1 month and dropped those students. And then I merged the student data with transcript data, which equaled 844,791 distinct observations. Any students or staff with incomplete data were dropped from the set for accuracy. Only students with complete demographic data, transcript, and students who had multiple years of assessment data in Lubbock ISD were used in the data set. The OLS regression baseline model that was employed was YITR equals alpha plus beta 1 EC ITR plus beta 2 class lag reading ITR plus beta 3 X ITR plus error ITR, where Y ITR is the reading assessment score of an individual student I assigned to teacher T during year R, controlling for lag reading score, as well as X, which represents the vector of covariates. Variable E represents the error term, which is essentially, quote, the reality that regression equation does not perfectly predict, end quote, scores. The null hypothesis is that Latinx students who have Latinx teachers will have zero effect on ELL Latinx students' reading assessment scores. Binary indicators were created for student race, ethnicity, gender, as well as special population indicators, and binary indicators were also created for staff, race, and ethnicity. This first table shows the vector of covariates and the descriptive statistics of the main study variables. You can see there were 1,000 total observations, 236 were ELL Latinx students with non-ethnic congruent teachers, and 764 were ELL Latinx students with ethnic congruent teachers. You can see from this data that the mean for the lag reading score is relatively similar. And the multiple regression estimates here show that the coefficient for score is a negative 11. And also, I use the binary indicators to find the percentages of peers that were male. FRL indicates economically disadvantaged. GT indicates gifted and talented. Also, the percentage of peers which were receiving disability services were classified as migrants and immigrants. The scatter plot here shows data from the figures, which range from the first academic school year, 2012-2013, through 2018-2019. You can see that there is a positive correlation, but it shows that the more Latinx congruent teachers that were assigned to ELL Latinx students, there was actually a decrease in scores. So before I ran the regression model, I did run t-test values, and this shows that there is a statistically significant difference in some of the groups, which you can see is the African American or Black group. And this non indicates that they did not have race congruent teachers. And there's the t-test value. This was also true for white students with ethnic congruent and race congruent teachers and those without, and also for Latin students who received non-ethnic congruent teachers and those that did. However, there was not a statistically significant difference between ELL Latinx students who received ethnic congruent teachers and those that did not. As far as policy implication goes, there's been a growing body of research which suggests that teachers with race or ethnic congruent students may have a significant difference than those who do not. And we already know that teachers play a significantly more important role in developing students' beliefs about their academic prospects than previously believed. Students who rarely encounter or rarely interact with college-educated adults outside the school day have been shown to be particularly influenced by their teachers. Furthermore, recent research suggests that positive effects are present when students are assigned to these race-congruent or ethnic-congruent teachers. One reason that we are so interested in this is because of the achievement gap that is found between white and non-white students, and especially between white students and English language learners. So as mentioned, the preliminary two-sample t-test with unequal variances was conducted and did show that there were statistically significant differences between certain race groups of students that had a race congruent teacher and those that had ethnic congruent teachers. The t-test results do reject the null hypothesis that, fail to reject the null hypothesis that ELL Latinx students with ethnic congruent teachers will not make a statistically significant difference on the reading scores. So as we saw in figure 1, as the number of Latinx teachers were matched with ELL Latinx students, the reading assessment score decreased. The mean reading score for ELL students without ethnic congruent teachers, which is seen in Table 1, shows that students without ethnic congruent teachers have a mean of 1,481.886, and ELL Latinx students with ethnic congruent teachers shows a mean of 1,457.153, which is a very small difference of only about 25 points, and you will see that the students with ethnic congruent teachers did score slightly higher. However, there are a significant number of confounding variables which should be considered within the interpretation of the data. The first of which is the relatively small sample size of only 1,000 students. With 1,000 students data being used for the study, even in a relatively heterogeneous group, chance could wreak havoc on the accuracy of this data. Furthermore, there is no information on how teachers received their certification or endorsements. This means that some teachers may have gone through traditional degrees in education with 4 years of educational experience, whereas some obtained alternative certification, which can be completed in less than a year. There's also the consideration that the number of students that were immigrant out of the 1,000 Latinx ELL students was more than a quarter, meaning that we must consider that a portion of them may be students with interrupted formal instruction, otherwise known as SIFE students. This could be a rational conclusion considering the majority of SIFE students arriving in the U.S. are Latinx and from Mexico, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Another extraneous variable to consider is the teacher sample for this study. When we look back to Table 1, an extremely interesting data point here is the mean number of years of teacher experience, which equals less than 1/2. When looking at all the teacher data for this data set, 99% of the teachers from this data panel were teachers with 2 years experience or less, which cannot be ignored when evaluating this data. In sum, the combination of these factors leads me to believe that further research is needed. However, it is important to point out to Lubbock ISD that one issue that needs to be addressed is teacher retention. This could be an important policy concern as well, considering that ELL students and Latinx ELL students may actually be benefiting from ethnic congruent teachers, but because they have such an exorbitant amount of obstacles stacked against them and a group of teachers with such little experience, this could be causing our data to skew. It may be important here to note that a policy implication could be that teachers working with English language learner students should be given, these students should be given the highest priority on teachers with experience in working with these kind of situations. As far as lessons learned, the main lesson that I learned from doing this pilot study was that I need to be very clear about what I want to research and to spend as much time in the beginning scrubbing the data and preparing it properly for the statistical test that I'm going to run. I spent a very large amount of time researching other studies similar to this and a very, very large amount of time coding, finding in the end that I should have been more clear from the beginning on what exactly I was going to research. All in all, I enjoyed this experience a great deal, and it was invaluable to see what kind of work I would be investing in the future. Thank you very much.